Hello and welcome to Buffy and the Art of Story Season 8. If you love the Buffyverse and you love creating stories or just taking them apart to see how they work, you're at the right podcast. Today we're talking about Season 1, Episode 10 of Angel, Parting Gifts, where Angel and Cordelia, still struggling to deal with their grief, join with an old friend to track a demon. If you are looking for episodes about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you can find every episode from Welcome to the Hellmouth and the Harvest to the season finale chosen by scrolling back in this podcast feed, or you can find them on YouTube or on my author website at lisalilly.com. And I am Lisa M. Lilly, author of supernatural thrillers, traditional detective mysteries, and the Writing as a Second Career books for fiction writers. Along with the recap of Parting Gifts, I'll talk about themes of grief, guilt, and anger, Cordelia's and Angel's character growth, how the subplots and plots weave together, and why Cordelia is the protagonist, as well as my rating for this episode on a scale of 0 to 10. There will be no spoilers for Angel the series, but I will talk about the whole of Buffy from time to time, so if you have not watched all of it, you may want to proceed with caution. Okay, let's dive into the Hellmouth, or maybe just Los Angeles. Parting Gifts aired the first time on December 14, 1999. It was written by David Fury and Janine Renshaw and directed by James A. Contner. It begins with an opening conflict. Angel has gone to see the oracles, asking them to reverse time again to save Doyle. They are not interested. The female oracle says why, to undo Doyle's noble act. And she tells Angel if Doyle is his friend, he will always be that. They're not turning back time for personal reasons. Angel argues Doyle was his only link to the powers that be. He's fighting blind without him. But they tell him when one door closes, another opens. The scene cuts to a demon running down the alley. A motorcyclist is riding after him, and we go to credits. Glenn Quinn, who played Doyle, is still in those credits, raising questions about whether we might see him again after all. When we come back, Cordelia is picking up and putting down different mugs at the office. She's looking for Doyle's special mug. Angel points out that Doyle didn't have one, but Cordelia thinks he should have. She sits down, dejected, saying she has nothing tangible to remember Doyle by. Angel tells her to get out of the office, live her life. She refuses. He's trying to push her away, and she insists she's not going anywhere. And then a timer dings, and she says she has to go. She's got an audition for a commercial. It's national, or she'd blow it off. Now we get to the story spark or inciting incident that sets the main plot rolling, because when Cordelia opens the door, a demon is behind it, and she gives a little shriek, and so does he, also startled, and we learn this is Barney. He's the demon we saw running earlier. He's got pointy ears and kind of a bad suit. He begs Angel for help. Cordelia offers to stay, but Angel tells her to go ahead. Barney tells her to break a leg. He senses a little performance anxiety, and he tells her to picture the audience. And Cordelia assumes he means in their underwear, and he says, no, he was going to say dead, but if that underwear thing works for her. In Angel's office, Barney asks why he's not in a coffin, setting off a rant by Angel, who hates that stereotype. And he also talks about how vampires can and do move about during the day, as long as they're not in the direct sunlight. Cordelia gets teary during her audition for Stain Be Gone and ends by sobbing. It's very sad for her, but a fun scene because there are 3 or 4 different producers or directors sitting there and they're saying, okay, good, very nice. But I think what we're going for is happy. She's happy the stain is out. And one of them says, interesting choice. Cordelia smiles and tries again, but now there are flashes and images. She grabs her head in pain and keeps struggling to blurt out the lines. And she ends really loud with grass stains. And she gets an, okay, we'll let you know. There's another quick shot of that motorcycle. There is someone on it who's wearing black leather pants and a black leather jacket. And we cut to Barney telling Angel that someone is hunting him and has tracked him through multiple states. It's an assassin, maybe a demon. And we cut back to a shot of those motorcycle boots and then the person taking weapons, including stakes, out of a bag, but we don't see the assassin's face. Angel wants to know what the deal is because usually someone hunting a demon that hard has a motive. Barney, though, claims he's nobody. Then he finally admits he's empathic. It does give him an advantage at cards. And when Angel says so, he's a cheat. Barney argues, okay, he's evil, but he's not, evil, and he needs help. Barney seems somewhat Doyle-like. I don't think he's half demon, but he looks somewhat human, and he seems a little shady like Doyle, and he dresses a bit like Doyle. It seems like maybe the show is setting him up to add him to the team. The scene cuts to Cordelia. Angel's in the office alone, and she strides toward him and kisses him on the lips. It's really awkward. And when they split apart, he tries to be kind and says he thinks she's acting out of grief, but Cordelia ignores his words and just says she didn't feel anything. And he tells her he didn't either. And Cordelia says, damn, I can't believe he did this to me. Angel responds, who did what? Cordelia says, Doyle, I thought our kiss meant something, and instead, he used that moment to pass it on to me. Why couldn't it have been mono or herpes? She explains what's going on, telling Angel the visions look really painful and they feel a whole lot worse. She had one at her audition. Angel asks what it was, and she tells him, stain be gone. And he tells her he means the vision. But Cordelia doesn't care about that. It was just some ugly, gray, blobby thing. She says to get rid of these visions, she will kiss every frog she sees. At that moment, Barney walks in. She kisses him, and he loves the customer service at this agency. But that also did not work. Angel leaves to go check out Barney's apartment because Barney thinks the assassin has figured out where he lives. We're a little over 13 minutes through the episode, and we are getting to the 1/4 turn. That's the first major plot turn that comes from outside the protagonist, spins the story in a new direction, and sometimes raises the stakes. I call it the 1/4 turn because typically in novels, that is where you see the plot turns at every quarter, but in movies and TV, you sometimes will see it later, and here it is more like a third of the way through. It's nighttime outside an apartment building. We see that motorcycle sitting there. The lights flicker inside in the hallway. Angel is about to go into Barney's apartment and someone pushes him from behind. Angel stumbles forward and turns, and it's Wesley Wyndham Price holding a crossbow on Angel, and we cut to a commercial. On return, Angel starts to ask questions, but Wesley raises the crossbow a little more and says he'll ask the questions, and he warns Angel no sudden moves, but Angel easily knocks that crossbow aside, looks over Wesley in his black leather outfit and says, interesting look for you, motorcycle. The Watchers Council trying out a new image? Wesley says, in point of fact, I no longer work for the council. I came to the conclusion that I was of greater value to the cause working autonomously. And Angel says, they fired you. Wesley insists that's not so, but Buffy wouldn't follow the council's orders, so they didn't need a watcher. He became a rogue demon hunter, and he's been hunting this demon over multiple states. It left a trail of dead bodies with their parts ripped off, gouged, or torn away. Angel thinks Wesley must have the wrong demon, and he describes Barney, who seems pretty harmless, but Wesley says, no, that's not who he's hunting, and he describes a large demon with a horn that secretes a green viscous fluid like the one that just then drips down onto them from the ceiling. A demon drops down after it. There's a short fight, but the demon breaks away, goes through the window and lands in the street below and limps off. So the introduction of the demon really is the turn, but it is also Wesley coming in. I think together these raise the stakes because now we know that there is a very dangerous demon out there. Back at Angel's apartment, Cordelia is drawing that blob that she saw. Barney senses she's grieving. She is not thrilled with him reading her emotions and tells him he shouldn't do that without permission. He apologizes, and she does too, for snapping at him. And she tells him about Doyle, including commenting that Doyle's clothing was like a Greek tragedy, but he was really sweet. Angel comes down the stairs, Wesley behind him, and Barney flees into the next room. That's the guy who's been chasing him. Angel tries to tell him it's okay and follows him. Wesley is still in the black leather jacket and pants, and Cordelia just walks over to him very purposefully, and Wesley, he recognizes her, and he says, what a nice, but Cordelia kisses him. It's a really long, somewhat passionate but awkward kiss, and he finishes, surprise. And Cordelia says, didn't work. Wesley, though, thought it went rather better than the last time. And remember that kiss they had in, I don't remember the episode name. It might have been Graduation Day Part 1 when he was going back to England and it ended, and he thought of him staying to spend time with her. She tells him now that the kiss was an experience and then says, Wesley? Because it is just dawned on her who it is, and he tells her he's a rogue demon hunter now. Cordelia says, wow, what's a rogue demon? Wesley looks in Angel's books and identifies the demon he was hunting as a kungai. It has a horn capable of consuming the life force of others. He and Angel decide it might be at a demon spa in Koreatown. Wesley wants to go with Angel. This is his fight, and he wants to be by Angel's side. And Angel responds, I had somebody by my side. He's dead now. And he insists that he works alone and leaves without Wesley. So we see that Angel, too, is grieving Doyle, and it comes out in this insistence that he works alone and some anger at Wesley trying to push back against him. At the spa, Angel bribes the proprietor, who points him toward a treatment room. In the meantime, Cordy finishes her drawing. She's alone with Barney. When he asks what it is, she tells him about the skull-splitting visions and how Doyle passed them on. They link her to the powers that be, and she'll never forgive him for doing that to her. We're around the middle of the episode, and usually here we see a major reversal for the protagonist. This was it, though the audience won't know it or won't know why for another few minutes, because Cordelia has told Barney this, and it puts her life in danger. For now, though, Barney asks Cordelia what there is to forgive Doyle for. He trusted Cordelia with this enormous responsibility. And he points out that Doyle doesn't sound like he had very many possessions. Cordelia agrees that's true. Barney says Doyle gave her the most valuable thing that he had. Angel finds the kungai lying on a spa table, gasping for air. The woman with him says he's dying. Barney, while Cordelia makes coffee, steps into another room and calls his partner or associate, whose name is Hank, and tells him he got the horn, but he thinks he found something better, and we go to a commercial. So that's when we realize how dangerous it was that Cordelia told Barney about the visions. Barney starts being horrible to Cordelia. He tells her she's pathetic. He asks how old she is, 20-something, yet she's so self-absorbed and full of regret. And she has these delusions of being an actress, but she's terrible at it. She tells him he can't know that. He's never seen her act. And he says he knows it because she knows it deep down. He, on the other hand, is a great actor. She tries to run. He taunts her that she let Doyle die, and that's her deep fear, that if only she'd been nicer to Doyle, maybe something would have changed. Maybe it could have saved him. Barney grabs her and slams her on a table. Angel can't understand the demon. It speaks in a demon language that includes different clicks of the tongue. And Angel is frustrated. He says to the demon, "I don't know your language." Wesley steps into the room and says that he does. Now he's wearing a kind of cream-colored suit, so not the black leather motorcycle look, but not quite the dapper Wesley that we saw in Buffy. He's something different, maybe a mix of both. The demon keeps talking. Wesley doesn't get all of it, but he does understand that the demon is saying that more will die. At the apartment, Cordelia pretends to get a vision. She claims she sees Barney in great, and Barney says danger, and Cordelia says pain and kicks him really hard. She gets away from him briefly, but he catches her. He says he doesn't want to hurt her. Bruises bring down the price, but not by that much, and he slugs her and knocks her out. Through Wesley, the Kungai tells Angel about a heart reader demon, and Angel realizes he means an empath demon, Barney. Cordelia wakes up gagged and tied up in a back room with all sorts of body parts, including a beating demon heart in a jar around her. Barney and Hank argue about whether to extract her eyes. Barney says it's worth more if the whole seer is intact. Wesley and Angel return and find Cordelia and Barney gone. Wesley blames himself. He was tracking the wrong demon all this time. Angel insists nothing bad will happen to Cordelia. He won't allow it. Wesley, feeling very sorry for himself, says the council was right to sack him. He had 2 slayers. One turned evil and is now vegetating in a coma, and the other is a renegade. And he goes on, "I'm useless, a fool, a sniveling, great big," and Angel says, "ugly, gray, blobby thing." Wesley says, "Yes, I'm an ugly, gray, blobby thing." What? Angel is looking at Cordelia's drawing, and he recognizes it as sculpture called Maiden with Urn. This is around 32 minutes through, and right around here, we typically see the last major plot turn. It should come out of that midpoint, which here was a reversal for Cordelia, and should spin the story yet again and further raise the stakes. Here I see it as a series of events that builds to that shift. First, Angel tells Wesley he needs his help. Wesley is the only one who can translate what the Kungai told them. They still need to know the meaning of that one word Wesley couldn't quite place. Angel goes online to find the sculpture and narrows it down to a hotel chain that bought it, but it has 12 hotels. In the meantime, Wesley, using Angel's library, has translated the word to mean caller sale, and he figures out it means an auction. We cut to Barney banging the gavel on the Kungai horn. So this part is what I see as the turn, because Cordelia is dragged on. She is the next item for bidding. I am recording this at the very start of the holiday season. I just went to see the giant Christmas tree in the Walnut Room at Macy's, which used to be Marshall Field's. And so many people in the Chicago area, including me, have memories of being taken as a kid to the Walnut Room for the holidays. I used to always get this snowman dessert made of vanilla ice cream with, I don't know what they used for a hat, but it had wafer cookies as arms, and I just loved it. And we would sit under the tree, which is a couple stories tall. It was always decorated beautifully, and it is this year as well. And interestingly, this year, the decorations have things that have a Marshall Field's bag and some of the other iconic things from Fields. So it's interesting because mostly Macy's has been playing down the Marshall Field's connection. So I really enjoyed that. Anyway, I want to wish you a very happy and peaceful holiday season. This is the last episode that will air before Christmas. So if you celebrate Christmas, I hope that you have a happy one. And if it is a hard season for you, I hope you find a way to get through it. For various reasons, the holidays can be tough. The holidays were pretty hard for a number of years. My parents died, and there were some other losses around the same time. It took a while for me to enjoy them again, and I know for a lot of people, they never are really into the holidays. So if that is true for you, I hope that you find a way to do something that you enjoy, and maybe you can think of it more as year end and consider what you would most like in your life for the new year. There will be another episode before New Year's, but in case you don't hear it by then, I wish you a joyous new year as well. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to me to be able to share it with all of you. Barney starts at $2,000. Two demons keep bidding against each other while a lawyer in a suit watches them carefully. When the bidding starts to slow around $11,000, Cordelia jumps in to talk herself up. At Angel Investigations, Angel narrows it to one hotel in the chain that was recently remodeled. It used to have the statue in its lobby. Cordelia now tells the bidders they can use her eyes to find things like buried treasure, and she taunts one of the bidders about letting the other get the better of him. He kills that other demon, ending the bidding around $20,000. But before Barney can bang his gavel, the lawyer who has been on the phone raises her paddle and says $30,000. Barney says sold. In the basement lounge area after the auction, the lawyer and Barney haggle over whether eye extraction is included while Cordelia, tied up, watches in terror. Then Hank and Barney argue over who will do the extraction. Hank is holding a very scary-looking tool in Cordelia's face. In between, we cut to Angel and Wesley reaching the hotel, intimidating a bellboy into pointing them to the auction, and then, at last, Angel throwing someone down the stairs into the basement where Barney is about to extract Cordelia's eyes. We're now at the climax of the episode. This is where our opposing forces have their final confrontation. The lawyer takes off to make a call to Wolfram and Hart. She tells them the item they wanted is off the market, and guess who caused it? Barney yells at Hank to get the stakes out when he sees Angel. Angel, Hank, and Barney fight. Wesley is knocked down early. He tries to join in, and he's struggling to pull a knife from his ankle holster. Angel tells him to free Cordelia, who is tied up on a chair. Wesley tries, but he still can't get that knife out, but he sees the demon horn on the floor, and he uses its pointy end to saw the ropes and free her. The two of them start to run, but Barney attacks Wesley. Angel keeps fighting Hank. Wesley is so angry at Barney. He says, I'm going to thrash you within an inch of your life, and then I'm going to take that inch. He does get in some blows, but Barney gets the better of him, getting Wesley on the floor. Barney's on top of him, and Cordelia, behind Barney, grabs that horn and stabs him. As advertised, the Kungai horn consumes his essence, and he rolls off of Wesley and shrivels. Cordelia hugs Angel, tells him she knew he'd find her. Angel says he was lucky he had a rogue demon hunter at his side. In the following action section of the story, that's where we tie up loose ends and resolve subplots. Cordelia frames that drawing of the sculpture in remembrance of Doyle. Angel starts making breakfast. Wesley begins a very long goodbye.
Well, I'll be off then. Farewell, Angel. Who knows when our paths will cross again. Wesley?
Do you even know where you're headed?
Rogue demon hunters rarely do. Wherever evil lurks, wherever the forces of darkness threaten humanity, that's where I'll be.
Oh, okay. We'll keep in touch.
Yes. Yes, I will. But now, the evil lurking everywhere bids me onwards. So, I go.
Take care.
Yes. No rest for the wicked fighters. Through storm and rain, heat, famine, deep, painful, gnawing hunger, I go. Breakfast? Ooh. I suppose so.
One of the perks of the job, after an all-nighter of fighting the lurking evil, we get eggs.
Toast? Please.
I'm famished. He's a good cook for someone on a liquid diet.
Astonishing, really.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say something about toast?
In the last scene, the three of them enjoy the food together. A very solid plot. And before I get to subplots, let's talk about who the protagonist is, because we have a lot going on here. Wesley, Cordelia, and Angel are all working on the same side. I see Cordelia as the protagonist, though. She is the main point of view character. Now, there's definitely a mix here, but considering it is Angel's show, we see quite a lot from her perspective. Her grief over Doyle, trying to find that mug, her time talking to Barney, her attempts to get rid of the visions. We follow her to that audition, and we see her throughout, even though we do cut to Wesley and Angel. We get a little bit of Wesley's point of view, and Wesley we mainly see from other people's perspective, that of Barney fleeing from him or telling Angel about him, Angel being surprised by him, Cordelia kissing him. Point of view alone, it could still be open. Angel could still be the protagonist because we do start with him with the oracles, and he has his own journey. But Cordelia also has the most active goal throughout the episode. She starts with wanting to find a way to remember Doyle, and she shifts to trying to get rid of those visions and come to terms with Doyle, passing them on to her. Angel, on the other hand, he is trying to get Doyle back at first, but he finds out that won't work. And then he has the less active goal of basically handling his own grief. He's trying to do it on his own without talking about it and reacting to Barney coming in and then discovering that Cordelia is in danger. Finally, Cordelia definitely has the most at stake. So that is what really tips it. into being Cordelia. First, her emotions. She has more than Angel at stake because she has gotten these skull-splitting visions, so there's that physical aspect, and her feelings of anger toward Doyle over passing them on pile onto the grief, in addition to what she and Angel are both feeling, which is the loss. Then her very life is at stake, and terrible torture of having her eyes pulled out. Those three things combined are why I see her as the protagonist. But the other stories, Angel's attempts to deal with his grief and to rescue Cordelia, to not lose another member of his team, that's a very strong story. And it dovetails so well with hers, the plot points weaving in and out of one another. For instance, the reversal for Cordelia, that Barney realizes she has this power, is also a major reversal for Angel, who clearly cannot deal with the idea or refuses to contemplate that he could lose another team member, another person that he loves. And Wesley has his story as well, his pursuit of the demon. We've got the action part of it, his mistake about pursuing the wrong demon, and his emotional journey of what he's doing there, feeling useless, and then at least somewhat joining into the team. So they all have these journeys and they weave so well together. The other part that is really well done here is that Cordelia is a very strong protagonist. And it's so interesting to make her the driving force because physically she is the least strong. Wesley is not the best fighter, but he has more actual physical fighting experience than Cordelia. He has more demon knowledge. He has more practice researching. Angel, obviously far stronger than both of them. But what we see and what you want in a protagonist is that Cordelia does everything that she can, given who she is and the situation she is in. She tricks Barney into thinking she had a vision. She kicks him. She runs. She fights back. When she is brought up for auction, she buys herself more time by raising the bidding and keeping it going. And in the end, she is the one who strikes the killing blow against Barney. And this is a great way to have a protagonist who is not as strong be able to prevail in the climax and not just be rescued by someone else. Yes, if Wesley and Angel didn't find her, there isn't much Cordelia could do, but she has done everything she can to give them the time to find her. And when they do, she dives in. She also probably uses that horn because she remembers it was the item on auction before her, that it has that power. So stabbing him with it is the way to kill Barney. So very effective, very strong protagonist. What is this episode saying? What are its themes? There are a number of them. The most clear is grief, the different ways that people deal with it, and the perils of it, because Cordelia, by the end of the episode, does feel better, in part because she talked about Doyle with Barney, and Barney's the one who helps her see that Doyle really did give her a gift. It wasn't something horrible he did to her. I mean, you could argue in some ways it is, but he gave her what was most valuable to him. And Angel, too, is grieving, and his takes the form initially of anger when he's expressing it. Anger at Wesley for pushing to go along with Angel, and Angel says, no, I had someone with, he's gone now. So he is not going to risk someone else getting killed, and he's determined to find Cordelia. And in the beginning, though it seems like he's trying to say to her, hey, take a day off, take care of yourself, she's probably right. He probably is trying to push her away and brood alone. And I don't think I mentioned she calls him Broody Boy at that point. This also shows how complicated grief is. Both Cordelia and Angel have feelings of guilt. Cordelia's for maybe not being nicer to Doyle or recognizing sooner that they could have something together. Angel's for not being able to stop Doyle from sacrificing himself. It's also complicated that Cordelia did share her feelings with Barney because, yes, it helped her reframe Doyle's gift, but it also put her life at risk. Was this an intentional theme by the writers? I don't know, but when you are grieving, it can feel scary and dangerous to let in all those feelings and to let people see just how hard it is. And I feel like that's a strong metaphor. She does that and her life is in danger. Wesley has grief too, grief over the loss of his position at the Watchers Council and over how he handled things with Buffy and Faith. And we see that throughout. He's posturing with Angel. Angel quickly knocks that crossbow away. Wesley insists he wasn't fired, but when things go wrong, he blames himself. He lapses into self-pity. He feels like he cannot do and has not done anything right. Ironically, though, this is what helps Angel get out of his grief a bit. He asks for Wesley's help. To some extent, he needs it. He does need Wesley to translate, but he could have gone alone to go after Cordelia, yet he did want Wesley to come with him. And I feel like that was Angel reaching out, recognizing Wesley's struggle, Wesley's grief, which is different than Angel's, but that Wesley needed this. And they work together, and Wesley does help him. The other theme is that people make mistakes. Wesley tracked the wrong demon. Both Angel and Wesley left Cordelia alone with Barney, something Angel points out when Wesley's blaming himself. Angel says, I left her too. But wallowing in it does not help. When Wesley's descending into self-pity, Angel says, see what I'm doing? I'm looking for clues. You could look too. You could help too. Something like that. It's a better line than that. But he's pushing Wesley to take action. And when Wesley does, that starts some of the healing. And it leads to Wesley helping rescue Cordelia and being included in breakfast after. Moving on to the character arcs, Cordelia starts with her grief, her guilt, her anger. We don't know about the guilt until later when Barney calls it out, but it is there. And her anger, yes, it is about the visions, but I have to think it is amplified by the loss. It's not unusual at all to be angry at the person who died. You can be angry about not resolving things, about what might have been, at yourself because you think somehow you should have stopped it. So Cordelia has all of that, and she moves through it in part by trying to push it away, by trying to get rid of it, by trying to return those visions. At Angel's urging, she draws the vision. Now, this is something Doyle always did, but you get the feeling just the process of drawing helps her a little. Talking about it helps her, and surviving helps her. But mainly, it is understanding that Doyle did leave her something. Not only does she have that to remember him, it is part of carrying on that fight. So it resonates with that theme of action and continuing to fight, being a way to deal with mistakes. And here it helps her with her grief. Angel has a similar journey, which I've talked about. He has to get through his grief and his almost instinct to isolate himself. We've seen that from the beginning with Angel. There's a big part of him that believes that just staying alone and working alone is the best way. Doyle convinced him otherwise, but Doyle is gone and Angel is leaning toward reverting to that. And this episode shows him that, yes, he can join forces, that he needs that, even though including someone else, caring about someone else poses risks. And while we don't reference it, it is not just Doyle's loss. It is not just Doyle that Angel couldn't save. He could not save his relationship with Buffy. I find it so significant that this starts with the oracles and he's asking them to turn back time. And they echo some of the lines from when he convinced them to do it to make him a vampire again so that he could keep fighting. And that was such a loss for him. That has to be resonating as well. Yeah, he chose to become a vampire again, but he did not see any other way to do it. So he couldn't save Buffy in a way. He couldn't keep Buffy in his life. He couldn't keep Doyle in his life. And it is a big step for him to both include Wesley in the fight, accept his help, and include him in breakfast, make him, at least for these moments, part of the team. If you enjoy supernatural thrillers, you can check out the first book in my 4-book Awakening Supernatural Thriller series free. Just go to lisalilly.com/free. That's lisalilly.com/free. And you will see where to download the first book on all the various platforms on which you might read. Wesley grows a little less here because he starts posturing, but it is pretty clear early on this is hiding or attempting to hide some insecurities, and those insecurities are still there at the end. He is waiting for them to ask him to stay. He's not willing to say, hey, I'd like to hang out with you guys. Can I have breakfast with you? I really don't want to be alone, because that's very vulnerable, and he doesn't do it. So while he has gained some confidence from helping Angel, from helping defeat Barney, he was on the floor with Barney on top of him when Cordelia killed Barney. So while he helped, for sure, getting to the hotel, and even his fight with Barney helped position Barney so Cordelia could kill him, he's probably still not feeling super effective and super confident. But he did grow somewhat, mainly because he admitted the truth to Angel. Angel already knew it, but Wesley admitted that, yeah, he was fired and he did mess up with his slayers. So there is some growth for Wesley, but I don't think as much as for Angel and Cordelia, partly because overall Wesley is less healthy emotionally. There is something else about Wesley that I like a lot in this episode. Now that I've said he's still insecure and he's not very confident or effective, at the same time, Wesley is a fighter. He got fired from the council, and he could have tried to get just some kind of job. I'm sure he could have gotten something that would have had pay, and instead he goes around the country fighting demons. There is a lot of courage in that. He doesn't have super strength. He wasn't as good at fighting as Giles or as experienced as Giles, yet he does it because he thinks it's right. There would have to be things that would be easier for him, less dangerous, but he keeps fighting demons. He wants to do the right thing and be a force for good, and that is something to really admire about him. Finally, Barney, as a villain, reminds me a bit of the mayor, not in personality. He is not charismatic like the mayor, and he is not engaging like the mayor, and he doesn't have that kind of power. But like the mayor, just because he's evil doesn't mean he has no insight into people. And he points out a truth to Cordelia, much the way the mayor pointed out some truths to Buffy and Angel. Now, those were truths that Buffy and Angel did not want to hear about the nature of their relationship, and that was hard for them. Here, The truth and Barney's insight helps Cordelia. Which brings me to world building. There are a lot of ways this episode is very consistent with the Buffyverse, and that is one of them, that characters are complicated, and sometimes even characters who are definitely evil can accomplish some good. This episode too fits really well in the lore we have built in Angel, the series so far. Cordelia told Doyle in Lonely Hearts, when they were talking about his visions, they were sitting in the bar, the singles bar, and he was talking about his visions, his head-splitting visions, and how it's his gift. And Cordelia said if that was her gift, she'd return it. And she spends a lot of this episode trying to do just that. Cordelia's fears or guilt about not being nicer to Doyle, that maybe somehow it would have changed something, maybe he wouldn't have died, echo her feelings in Room with a View when she felt she was being punished for being a mean girl. She doesn't necessarily say punishment here, and Barney doesn't say that, but there is an echo of that, and that feels very, very real to me, because when people work through issues like that, they don't just do it once. You often have to revisit something, because when you struggle, that's your vulnerability. That comes up again. And I love that when Maud brought all this home, that was the old lady ghost, as Cordelia called her, when she brought all this home to Cordelia, it really undermined and weakened Cordelia. And it took quite a bit for Cordelia to be able to pull herself together and fight back. And here, Barney says these things, and they're upsetting to Cordelia, but she very quickly is fighting back. So yeah, she may think about them, but she doesn't let him get to her the way she did with Maud. So we see that she had that growth. Wesley, very consistent with what we saw in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He's a little bit doofusy. He does some posturing, much as he did in Buffy. He seems more self-aware here. He admits more readily to his failings. And sadly for Wesley, not just self-aware, but less self-esteem, more dejected, which makes sense because, yes, he helped in graduation day for sure. So a little bit he made up for some of his mistakes, but he's had more time to contemplate all that went wrong, and he did get fired. And it seems like it's been a big struggle for him hunting demons on his own. And then to have fought the wrong demon all this time doubles down on all those feelings of inadequacy. And all of it really fits Wesley. Even the vulnerability fits, because he did show some of that in Buffy. He did come back after Faith got away and just say, tell me what to do. I want to help in the fight. And it took a while for Buffy to include him, but she did. So we saw that before too, that Wesley can admit mistakes and he still wants to be part of the good fight. The Cordelia and Wesley kiss, of course, was a great callback to that kiss that they had in graduation day. And I do wonder if Angel's rant about, yes, vampires can move around during the day, as long as they're not in direct sunlight. I wonder if there were some comments about the show, because there are a lot of times we see Angel in what sure seems like direct sunlight and he's not bursting into flames. Either they were answering that or they were anticipating, and this was a good chance to get that in there. It did have a bit of a story reason though, because Barney says he doesn't know much about vampires, and then at the end, when Angel bursts in, the first thing he does is tell Hank to get the stakes. So he has clearly paid attention to the vampire thing. And we revisit Wolfram and Hart. They have come up in a few episodes. It seems like whenever something organized and evil is going on, they are connected to it. Here, they weren't running the auction, but the lawyer was there bidding in it. and her call and her reference to who took the item off the market tells us that the firm is still paying attention to Angel and is frustrated by him. The way she says it, we know they are frustrated that he keeps getting in the way of their plan. Barney's comment to Cordelia about her age, like what is she, 20-something, and she doesn't correct him, is inconsistent with Buffy because Cordelia was 18 at the end of Buffy. We have Giles saying that to Wesley. She's 18. Go ahead and ask her to dance. And because this is running concurrently with Buffy, we know it's only the first semester of Buffy at college. So at most, Cordelia could be 19 now. I did a bonus episode on this for patrons, the age of Cordelia. So you can hear more about that on Patreon if you want to check it out. I do think this is an attempt by the writers to not overtly, but subtly have the audience start thinking of Cordelia as older and more grown up than she is. And I talk more about why I think they did that in the bonus episode. Finally, I see some world building with Wesley staying for breakfast. We don't know what it means exactly, but presumably we'll see him again at least once, and I enjoy having another character cross over. And when I watched the first time, I had no idea. I don't think I had seen any promos, or they probably kept it kind of quiet. It might have been something like a surprise or an old friend or something. But I was so shocked to see Wesley. I would never have guessed we were going to see him again. So that was very fun. Finally, my rating for the episode. I struggled with this because I've identified a lot of things I love about this episode. I like the themes, the implication of grief. I like Wesley's introduction. I'm very happy that Barney was not just a Doyle replacement. My first time watching, I remember being a little disappointed, like, oh, okay, they're just going to bring in this other demon to be Doyle light or Doyle slightly different. And I love the twist that he was the villain. And then we meet Wesley. We don't know what's going to happen with him. So I like that. I like Cordelia's growth. I like the layers. And yet, for whatever reason, I don't really ever enjoy re-watching this episode. I don't hate it, but it feels a lot like an in-between episode, a transition episode. And we did have all that drama and heartbreak with Doyle last episode. And this feels like, okay, we are processing some of that. I mean, I doubt that they are done processing their grief, but we're getting through a little of that. And then we're going to find out, well, what is the show going to be like going forward? What is Angel Investigations going to be without Doyle? We don't really know yet. So maybe that's part of it. There's that saying, the whole is more than the sum of its parts, where you look at all the parts and maybe you don't think any one of them is that stellar, but as a whole, something works really well. And this is a little bit of the opposite for me. There are a lot of aspects of this that work great. So you would think I would be giving it a 9 or somewhere around there with some of the episodes I really loved. Yet, as a whole, I feel like it's more like a 7.5. So not one of my least favorite episodes so far, but not a favorite. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. How do you feel about this episode? How does it strike you? Is it an 8 or 9 for you? Or is it lower than where I put it? And you can email me at buffystorypod@gmail.com. You can comment on Patreon. Even if you're not a patron, you go to the episode there and comment, or on YouTube. So that is it for parting gifts. Come back in 2 weeks for a special pre-New Year's episode of Buffy and the Art of Story, where I will count down my 10 favorite characters in all of Buffy the Vampire Slayer for the new year. You can find back episodes of Buffy and the Art of Story, as well as the Buffy and the Art of Story books and all my fiction at lisalilly.com. To support the podcast, hear extra bonus content, and get each regular episode a few days early, join the Patreon community at patreon.com/LisaMLilly. That's Lisa, M as in Marie, Lilly. Music for this episode was written and performed by Robert Newcastle. Buffy and the Art of Story is a production of Spiny Woman LLC, copyright 2025. All rights reserved.